Welcome to Sage Audio. Today we're talking about how to master with iZotope Ozone. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us at sageaudio.com to receive a free mastered sample of it. Introduction to iZotope Ozone. Real quick, and before we get into everything, for this session we'll use the module format and introduce our processing within this plugin that houses all forms of the processing and dictates the routing from left to right. We're going to use 7 processors in total. Keep in mind that if you're mastering with Ozone, you'll be able to access these processors individually outside of this module. Let's take a listen to the mix that we're going to be working on.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 1. Subtractive EQ. The first processor we're going to use is a subtractive EQ to attenuate aspects of the signal we don't like prior to the signal being amplified by distortion and other processing. Using the analog setting with stereo routing, I'll attenuate some of the lowest frequencies to create more headroom. Then I'll find some frequencies that don't add anything positive to the mix and subtly attenuate them. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 2. Tape emulation. Now that I've attenuated aspects of the mix I don't want, I can begin to amplify it with some tape emulation. I'll increase the input drive to hit the processor in a pleasant way and increase the harmonics to make the sound a little fuller and more aggressive. By combining a 15 inches per second tape speed and altering the low and high emphasis, I can find a frequency balance that I like. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 3. Harmonic excitement. An exciter will generate more harmonics, which, depending on the frequency range, will make the master fuller, more powerful, or clearer. I'll split the processing into 3 bands and find the emulation type and amount that works well for each band, as well as use oversampling to avoid any aliasing. I'll be more aggressive with the high frequencies, since in this instance I feel that they lack some needed clarity. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 4. Upward compression. With the Dynamics plugin, I'll create multi-band upward compression by using a negative ratio and set the threshold carefully. I'll put this processor after the distortion and harmonic generation to increase their detail, and then monitor the value below the meter to see how much amplification occurs. Now keep in mind that when you're using upward compression, the signal is going to be amplified whenever it falls below your set threshold. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 5. Additive dynamic EQ. Next, I'll combine additive and dynamic equalization as well as some stereo imaging by utilizing mid-side processing. For the mid-image, I'll expand the kick, the vocal clarity, and hi-hat, and on the side, I'll expand some of the mids, pull back on the vocal range, and expand the highs. By compressing the vocal range on the side, I'll reduce phase cancellation in that range, in turn, making the vocal a little clearer. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja
Step 6. Vintage limiting. Since this track has a lo-fi feel to it, some vintage limiting might be a good step. I'll use the modern mode since this introduces some classic qualities but still retains the detail of the track. I'll avoid true peak limiting and only compress a little. Notice that this plugin mainly introduces gain and a little character on the occasions that compression does occur. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Step 7. Maximization. I'll cycle through the various processing modes to find one that suits the track well and use a slightly quicker response to retain transients. Some stereo independence will make the dynamics more interesting and varied, and the transient function will allow for more transient detail after limiting has occurred. Looking at my metering, I can see that the LUFS is hovering between -13 and -12, and I'll reduce the output to allow some room for future encoding. Let's take a listen to it.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
Using iZotope Ozone. iZotope Ozone was a little bit different from the mastering setup that I'm used to. However, I found that the module kept the session more focused and gave me a better understanding of what was going on with the signal. On a separate note, if you're new to mastering, the Master Assistant is really helpful. It can give you a good foundation for creating a chain and makes it easier to create a demoed master quickly. Let's take a listen to the before and after of this track using the chain that we created.
Swimming in a pool of your perfume, diving in the deep end, deja vu, deja vu. I'm floating inside a moment, hoping it stops the time, sleeping and staying.
If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us at sageaudio.com to receive a free mastered sample of it. Also, subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos. Thank you so much for watching.